The surprising Seahawks and we can say the surprising Jaguars have a huge game in week 6. We're here to do a crossover and tell you all about it.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
That is, in fact, true. It is your team every day. And we thank you for making us your first listen here on both Locked On Jaguars and Locked On Seahawks. I am Tony Wiggins. He is Corbin Smith. We're about to give it to you like we always do, man, here on the Locked On Podcast Network on our crossover Thursdays, presented by Prize Picks. That is right. All across the network, that's what we do here. Crossover Thursdays, always presented by Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code Locked On NFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. We'd also like to thank you for listening to Locked On Jaguars and Locked On Seahawks. And reminder that you can follow our show and hear new episodes ad-free daily on Amazon Music. So make sure you go and check that out. Hello to the everydayers of both teams. We appreciate you for tuning in wherever you get your podcast, whether you watch or listen. And if you're new, we'll give you something to enjoy. Corbin and I are going to go, I'm going to tell you, from back to front. We're going to end the game with a game prediction. We're going to show the game predictions and the winning formula right smack in the middle. We'll talk about the game-changing matchups. But we're going to start off with the biggest storylines. The biggest storyline for me is, Corbin, I got to be transparent. I was on Locked On NFL, man. I said the Seahawks were going to be one of the worst teams in the league. Boom, they've tricked me and fooled me, man. I just had no idea that they were going to be this strong coming out the gate.
Well, and the thing is, they could be 5-0 very easily. Both their losses, they had opportunities late to win the game, and they couldn't get it done on offense and defense. They made a few plays early in those games to the 49ers and Buccaneers that ended up hurting them as well. But 3-2, the Sam Darnold era off to a really good start. And that's just the key storyline for me right now every week. Are we going to keep seeing number 14 slinging the pigskin the way that he is? I mean, he is absolutely destroying teams with the deep ball right now. He is leading all quarterbacks averaging more than 25 yards per attempt on 20-plus yard passes. He's completed double-digit throws like that. And, oh, by the way, he's leading the NFL with a 73.3% completion rate on those passes. And this is without DK Metcalf, without Tyler Lockett. Seattle has turned it over to Jackson Smith and Jigba. Cooper Kupp is still playing at a high level. Torrey Horton's been a really nice find as a fifth-round pick for them. So Seattle's offense has not been the problem. I think everybody going into the year was expecting that the offense was going to be the biggest detriment. I think a lot of the national pundits were down on Seattle because of the quarterback change, not having the receivers that they've had in the past, and continuing questions about the O-line. The offense has looked great pretty much the entire season. Week 1, they had their struggles, but it's really been fun to watch Sam Darnold and Clint Kubiak's offense and the run game starting to find traction. The real disappointment, though, is the way this defense played this last week. This was a top 5 scoring defense going into week 5, and then Baker Mayfield just put Seattle's defense on the grill, buttering them up, and, man, you want to talk about a well-done steak. That's what he turned the Seahawks into in this game, and it was hard to watch because Mike McDonald's defenses don't play like that. It was seeing all these busted coverages, and they've got injuries galore on that defense, but it shouldn't matter. They were making a lot of mistakes with their coverage assignments, breakdowns. It felt like, what am I watching? And Tampa Bay, got to give them a lot of credit. They schemed the hell out of it on offense. But this defense, as talented as it is, this injury report this week is going to be huge, seeing who they can get back and if they can get their mojo going, because Jacksonville just showed this last week, and they've been showing it all year long, really, that this is an offense that continues to take incremental strides under Liam Cohen's leadership, and Trevor Lawrence playing better. We got to see it on the national stage, which I know Jaguar fans are extremely excited about.
Absolutely, we're excited about it, and we should be. And you guys have a lot to be excited about, too. I'm a little bit concerned about Sam Darnold because we saw him chop people up all last year, and the last impression is the last 2 games that he played. But now he's regrouped, and it looks like he's playing that same way. That's why our defensive backs, mainly Tyson Campbell, when you talk about deep balls, Tyson Campbell doesn't have the greatest ball skills in the world, if you ask me. So they're going to have a little bit of their version of a no-fly zone. And I think this is also a game where you're going to see Montez Brown a little bit more since he's come back and he played well the other night. You're going to see Travis Hunter, who splits time on both sides of the ball. But you're right, man. It's all about Trevor Lawrence. And you got the whole Trevor Lawrence experience, as we call it here in Jacksonville. That's why we argue with everybody that always says, well, he sucks, he's no good. Oh, his highs are super high. He has to try to manage his lows and to make sure that those lows don't go on and on and on and on. Luckily for Jacksonville, he was able to regroup the other night and do a really, really good job. Speaking of the offensive line, the Jaguars' offensive line has been a big story because they have played top tier, one of the best run offensive lines in the league. They have, for the most part, done a really, really good job of also protecting Trevor Lawrence. They are also a little bit banged up. So you got a banged up offensive line, and we'll find out later on, maybe tomorrow, what that injury report looks like. But then you talk about you guys' defense being banged up. The one thing I'll tell you, man, is that it's always about the trenches. We can talk about quarterbacks all we want to, but whoever wins the blocking and tackling usually wins this game. So I'm really, really looking forward to it, and I think it's going to be very fun. One quick thing I want to ask you is the cross-country trip. I know in the media circles that kind of stuff comes up sometimes in questions. How have the Seahawks fared if they've had to go east, and now they're coming from the Pacific Northwest to the Southeast? I think weather might be a little bit advantageous for Jacksonville.
Yeah, normally I would say that this is something to watch, but Mike Macdonald's teams, it's been so weird. They have lost 8 of their last 11 games at Lumen Field. Like what used to be the most dynamic home field advantage in the NFL, like they just can't get it done there consistently. But when they go on the road, they've already won in Pittsburgh earlier this year, which was a place that was a house of horrors for the Seahawks earlier in their franchise history. But they went to Pittsburgh and got the job done. They have excelled. They only lost 1 road game all of last year. They've won their 2 road games they have had to this point as well this season. They have been road warriors. They, for whatever reason, I've been joking with Mike Macdonald a couple times, like, you need to start having these guys go to your practice facility and get on a bus to go over to Lumen Field and make it a road game. Because I don't know what they're doing, but they have had a ton of success. And they've won in Southeastern environments too. They won in Atlanta last year. They've won a couple other games. They won in, I believe they were in Tennessee. That might have been 2 years ago, actually. Pete Carroll had success with the road games as well at the end of his tenure. So this has been one West Coast team that has not been bothered by playing in the Eastern time zone early starts.
I will see if that bleeds into our game-changing matchups. I got a feeling we're going to have some interesting things to say about that. We'll get into it in just a second here on a crossover edition here presented by Prize Picks of Locked On Jaguars and Locked On Seahawks. All right, today's show sponsored and brought to you by our friends over at Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride with more IIHS Top Safety Pick Plus awards than anyone else as of August of this year. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings the same intention to how we craft every model. You can feel the Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to available Napa leather and upholstery. You can make every drive feel like anything but an everyday drive. Smooth handling and intuitive controls is where it's at. With all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Like our players, we swear by every detail and sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. All right, moving and grooving here on a crossover Thursday presented by Prize Picks here on Locked On Jaguars and Locked On Seahawks. We talked about the trenches. The offensive line for the Jaguars has been the real deal. The defense has been lights out, leading the league in turnovers, multiple turnovers. And our linebacker, Devin Lloyd, is playing like the defensive player of the year. But I want to reverse this for a minute. And you were talking about your defense and your offensive line. When you said that Sam Darnold has been throwing the ball at 25 yards per attempt and really going down the field. That means the only way that happens, this is the smartness in me now. This is the Duval County school system. He didn't do that, and he can't do that unless somebody's been blocking for him and keeping the pass rush on the other side away from him. And right now, Trayvon Walker did not play because of the club. And you notice the noticeable difference in the Jaguars' ability to get pressure. I don't know if he's going to play or not, but to me, that's going to be the key if the Jacksonville Jaguars will have a chance to make Sam Darnold uncomfortable without blitzing and to be able to get to him with a four-man rush so they can play coverage on the back end and watch out for those weapons deep.
Yeah, aside from the game against the 2 weeks ago, the game that they had against trying to get all my games mixed up. Arizona got 4 sacks on Sam Darnold, but Seattle had only given up 3 sacks total in the first 3 games, and Darnold didn't get sacked at all by Tampa Bay. Now, they did get some pressure on him on the interception that he threw at the end of the game, bounced off a guy's helmet, just kind of a fluky play. It happens. Unfortunately, it happened at the worst of times for Seattle at the end of the game, but it tarnished what was otherwise a near perfect performance by Sam Darnold. And it's been because of improved pass protection. I think Charles Cross has taken that big step in his 4th season. He's playing like a top 10 tackle. Getting a healthy Abe Lucas back has been huge, but the interior line has still got some questions. Anthony Bradford, the right guard, he has not given up as many pressures as I think a lot of fans seem to think he has, but the pressures he has given up have been really quick ones. And luckily, Sam Darnold has been very elusive in the pocket. He's had eyes in the back of his head. I mean, this is the same QB that was seeing ghosts in New York. Yeah. He is clearly not having that issue now. His pocket presence is 10 times better than what it used to be. And that has allowed him to extend plays outside the pocket. He's gotten a lot of downfield throws doing that. So Darnold has to continue doing that. But the offensive line, I'm looking at the interior. The tackles obviously are going to have to do what they've been doing as well. But keeping that 4-man rush away is going to be crucial, particularly on the road. And every game the Seahawks play, even now, I'm still guarded. Even with this offensive line playing a little bit better this year, it still feels like a road game like this against a team that's got tons of momentum, has some really talented guys. They're going to be able to try to get after Sam Darnold. That is going to be crucial in this road game. And, for me, I want to start this matchup discussion with, I'm kind of going to call out a group because Leonard Williams, Jaron Reed, Byron Murphy II, those guys were phenomenal the first 4 games. And then this last matchup against Tampa, who was playing backups at a couple spots of the offensive line, basically all you remember from those 3 players was a personal foul penalty that was called on Leonard Williams in the end zone because you could tell he was frustrated. Those 3 did next to nothing in that game against Tampa Bay. Jacksonville could be missing their starting center again in this matchup. Like, I'm looking at this trio of defensive tackles. If you can get pressure on Trevor Lawrence inside out and the edge guys can contain so he's not running around, Lawrence is still a guy that will, and I'm sure you will acknowledge this too, he will still take his shots and he will throw the ball into double coverage sometimes. He will take some of those chances. Seattle's secondary is opportunistic, at least when they've got most of their guys there. I'm looking at that interior pressure. They didn't get it on Baker Mayfield. Can they get back to doing what they normally do? This is normally a wrecking defensive line, and they just didn't bring it this last game. Can they take advantage of some of the banged up offensive line issues the Jaguars have in the middle? And can they get Big Cat and company playing to the level that we're used to seeing? Last week seemed like it was just, for whatever reason, it was an aberration, or at least they're hoping that's the case, and these guys start playing the way they're capable of. If not, if Lawrence has got time like Baker Mayfield did, it could be another long weekend for the Seattle Seahawks defense.
Yeah, and I was a little bit surprised when Robert Hainsey left the game the other day, the starting center, and they didn't take Pat McCary and move him over from right guard and then replace McCary with Chuma Edoga. But Anton Harrison had been out of the game earlier, and Edoga was in and out playing right tackle. So I'm thinking that they would rather just change one person out than change 2 or 3 different people trying to appease putting the best 5 out there. But then Monheim comes into the game. He's a rookie from USC. The kid plays lights out, and he's lined up right across from Chris Jones, and they didn't help him. And he held his own on the big play that Brian Thomas Jr. caught down the sideline. Liam Cohen even said he was one-on-one with him, and he helped hold him off long enough with a little bit of a chip from a running back just for Trevor Lawrence to release that ball and let it go. And that enabled the Jaguars to get themselves into a real good position. So if Robert Hainsey isn't able to go, Jonah Monheim has the confidence of Liam Cohen and the rest of this ball club. Kenneth Walker, I saw a stat earlier in this year where he had some weird stats, some weird numbers where I think he was averaging the lowest yards per carry for a dude who started or something like that. Has he gotten on track and gotten going since early in the season?
Yeah, this last week averaged 8.6 yards per carry, almost got to 90 rushing yards, had a 31-yard run. Like, there's never been a question about Ken Walker III's talent and his ability to bounce runs and create in space is up there with the elite backs in the NFL. The issue is that he likes to play hero ball at times, and he tries to do more than he should, and he gets 4, 5, 6 yard losses, and that ends up hurting the offense, putting him behind the sticks. It hurts his average. This last week, though, against Tampa Bay, which, by the way, Tampa Bay came in with a top 3 run defense in almost every metric. Seattle ran for 122 yards on him. It was the best rushing performance they've had this year, in my opinion. Maybe not by yardage, but they were very effective running the football. They passed to open the run game up. And Walker's worst run last week was 0 yards. He didn't have any tackles for a loss in the backfield, which if they can get that going where he's consistently getting positive plays and he's not having those drive killers that he has mixed in there time to time, this offense is that much more dangerous with him in there. I'm really curious to see how Seattle approaches the run game in this one, because Jacksonville has not been as successful as, say, Tampa Bay was, and the Seahawks went out and, like I said, they ran at will at times in that game with the passing game opening up those opportunities. See if they can maybe stress the linebackers. Devin Lloyd's been so good in coverage. See if you can stress those guys out with your run game and wear them down physically, and then you can hopefully get some of those shot plays. Man, JSN against Travis Hunter, I hope we get to see a good amount of that in this game, because JSN is having a phenomenal year.
Something about those Ohio State
second right now in receiving yards in the NFL. Anybody that questioned the move, getting rid of DK Metcalf, like JSN was their number 1 guy the second half last year, and he has just carried that over this year, and he looks like a top 5 receiver in the league. You got Cooper Kupp working out of the slot. Those opportunities, it feels different than last week where you're trying to pass to run. I'm wondering if the run game is going to need to be the engine that gets those big play opportunities this week against Jacksonville's defense.
Yeah, it could be. Turnovers and pre-snap penalties. The Jaguars have not had a lot of turnovers. Trevor Lawrence, I think, has had 5 interceptions, but they don't fumble a lot. And they have been super opportunistic on the other side of the ball. They've already eclipsed how many turnovers they got last year. So they're extremely active and extremely opportunistic, and they do a good job of being physical, and that allows those turnovers to happen. We're going to give you the winning formula for both teams, what both teams have to do and maybe have to stay away from, and a game prediction. We'll do that in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars and Locked On Seahawks crossover. All right, it's all about game time, man. The NFL season is back, and honestly, there's nothing better than being in the stadium surrounded by fans cheering on your team. But let's be honest, getting tickets can be a hassle between queues, login screens, and prices jumping at checkout. It can be absolutely frustrating, and that's why I use GameTime, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. GameTime is fast, easy, and backed by the GameTime guarantee. You always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included. You ain't gonna have those surprises when you check out to pay and all of those extra costs. Whatever they said it was, that's gonna be exactly what it is. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use the code Locked On NFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, the promo code, I'll spell it for you, LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download GameTime today. And I got to let you know that today's show is also brought to you and sponsored by our friends over at FanDuel. With the year has already started. In fact, we're right at week 6. The NFL season is, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, that's right, right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets or 300 bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet Put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Make sure you look in on those injuries now. They'll give you accurate information and let you know exactly where everyone stands before you make your wager. And I think that's super, super important and dope that they do that. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. All right, third and final segment of our Thursday crossover presented by Prize Picks here with my man Corbin Smith. I am Tony Wiggins. Corbin, what does Seattle have to do and what do they have to avoid in order to have success coming to Duval County?
Well, first, I got to start on the defensive side of the football. They cannot afford to give up the chunk plays in the passing game that they did this past week against Tampa Bay. And getting to see some of those big plays that the Jaguars were able to get against Kansas City's defense on Monday night, they have got to tighten things up on that back end. But really, it boils down to the pass rush creating those opportunities. They were not marrying up their pass rush with their secondary on Sunday at all. They need their defensive line to deliver. You need Boye Mafe to actually show up. He has no sacks so far this year. He's in a contract year. You want another contract from Seattle, you better start playing like you're going to get that contract. They're not going to have Derek Hall. Hopefully DeMarcus Lawrence is back for this game. We'll see. But they need all of those edge guys and the interior defenders. Leonard Williams, play at the all-pro level you've played at most of your time in Seattle. They need that front line to set the tone so they can help the back end of the defense. Even if they have Devin Witherspoon and Julian Love back this week, they're not going to be 100%. You need to protect your secondary. So I'm looking at the pass rush. To me, it is all on those guys to make life tough on Trevor Lawrence. And if they don't, again, you're looking at a repeat here against a team that's got a bunch of good weapons on the outside. You give those guys time. It doesn't matter how good your secondary is. You can't cover forever. That is going to be a problem for them. They've got to have that defensive line show up. And I think they need to get at least 3 sacks in this game on Trevor Lawrence to win in Duval.
That's a good point, because my issue for the Jaguars is, besides the fact that they just played an emotional game, people don't really understand sometimes that when folks have a bad loss, they say you have to have a short memory and you have to forget about it because it'll linger. Well, when you have an emotional win, sometimes you have to also forget about it. And because it'll linger, you'll be emotional. You'll go out super, super fired up. You won't be relaxed. And then you'll think you're still adding something to that chapter. Well, that chapter's gone. Trevor Lawrence even said that at the press conference today, when everybody kept talking about the play where he slipped and got up on the third try. Well, the thing is he say, all right, he answered enough questions. He say, let's move on to Seattle, because they know nothing they did last week is going to help them this week, except in this respect. In the respect that as long as they control their emotions, as long as they keep the main thing that's in front of them, they'll have a shot. Now, on the field, what they have to do, I think they got to run the football. I think they have to have a heavy dose of Travis Etienne, a heavy dose of Bashal Tutin, who is his backup, and then throw in a little bit of LaQuint Allen. But to me, it comes down to what they can do in the running game. If they get the running game right, it softens the defense up. It keeps everybody at home, makes sure the linebackers and the safeties have an extra look, and that will allow Brian Thomas Jr., and that will allow Travis Hunter, when he's on offense, to get open down the field. They're going to be missing Brenton Strange, their tight end, who was playing at a super, super high level. They're going to be missing him in the passing game and in their packages where they go 2 tight ends, and they have to make sure that they replace him. He's been put on IR. But it's going to be critical, in my opinion, that the Jaguars run the football, attack when they can with play action, get their receivers some room to operate, and then run well after the catch and create some of those chunk plays that you want Seattle to stay away from. The flip side of it is this: they can't turn it over. They can't have pre-snap penalties. If they start approaching 10 penalties, we got a problem. And they have been letting that clock. I'm going to tell the Seahawks fans something. When that play clock gets to like 8, you're going to hear the Jaguar fans on the TV. If you're coming here, you're going to hear them in the stadium. But you're going to hear them going, go, go, go. They were pushing him. It's almost like Trevor was having a baby and they were saying push or something, man. But because I'm telling you, every single play, they were like, hi, go, go. And sometimes he made it. Sometimes he didn't. Sometimes they had to call timeout. Those are the things that the Jaguars have to clean up. If they do that, I think they'll be fine.
Yeah, when I look at Seattle's offense going into this game, I don't want to make it sound like you and I are playing the same record, but really, for me, I mentioned this a little bit earlier in the matchups. Like, Seattle's coming off their best game running the football this year. 122 rushing yards. They had more rushing yards than a couple of the other games. But in terms of efficiency and not having the negative plays, they ran the football the best they have all year. You're starting to see this young offensive line gel from that perspective. You want to win on the road, especially going cross country. You want to go down to Jacksonville and beat a team that just had a statement victory of their own. You want to go make a statement. Bring the physicality, bring the run game with you, and create those play action opportunities that Sam Darnold has been so lethal on. They need to get that ground game going early. And I just look at Jacksonville's front seven. This is a different matchup than it was last week. Tampa Bay, look, Jacksonville doesn't have Vita Vea.
No.
You aren't going into this game thinking we've got this massive DT that can wreck games by himself. And if we just try to run into a brick wall that is Vita Vea, good luck getting your offense going. They were passing the ball to really work him and make it difficult for Tampa Bay to really get down in the run. I look at this game, though, and I'm thinking the guys that really scare me are the athletic edge rushers, the athleticism of the linebackers. How do you attack that? Let's get physical with those guys up front. So I think if Seattle can get to 125 rushing yards in this game and have at least one rushing touchdown in the red zone, I think you can guarantee they win this football game. That's how big it is to me. I think if they come in and they are flat running the ball like they were a couple times earlier this year, 49ers game in week 1, didn't run the ball well against New Orleans, ironically, in week 3, but they were throwing the ball so well they didn't need to run the ball. But I think if they go out and they get to the 125 mark, they get Ken Walker and Zach Charbonnet going, and the play action off it, the way Sam Darnold has been flinging the pigskin, the way the receivers are playing, I have great confidence that Seattle wins if they can do that. If they're not running the football well and the pass rushers can pin their ears back, then I think this has a chance to turn ugly potentially, especially if the offense isn't playing well and the defense is on the field. You could see one of those snowball games, ironically, in South Florida.
Yeah, no doubt about it. You said something to start the show. You said we should be 5-0. The Jaguars actually should be 5-0. They lost to Cincinnati with that quarterback, Jake Browning, that just got benched, by the way. But on 4th down in their own territory, he threw a pass, and Travis Hunter played textbook defense, and they called pass interference. If any, it's probably the worst DPI I have seen in years, and that's saying something. That's rich because every single week somebody's saying that they're bad calls. But this was textbook defense, got his head around, knocked the ball out, and the explanation was that he didn't turn his head around, and that's just totally 100%. If they give the Jaguars that play, they walk out of Cincinnati with a win, and they're sitting here at 5-0 instead of 4-1. That being said, I think the Jaguars are going to win because they're not the type of team to get blown out. They're not built or constructed unless somebody has 6 turnovers. They're not going to get blown out. But then these close games, they are a gritty gang, man. That's what I call them. Gritty gang, man. They will get it done and they will figure it out. And that was on full display the other night against the Chiefs, where they looked like they gave the Chiefs every single chance to win, but they found a way to get it done. So I'm going to pick the Jaguars. I'll say it's close. I'll go 24-19 and say the Jaguars pull it out and get the 5-1.
Yeah, I'll give my game prediction on our Friday show of Locked On Seahawks. But I will say this. I'm having a really hard time grappling with this game right now because I just saw what Jacksonville did, and it was incredibly impressive win they had on Monday night. I saw what Seattle's defense did, and I've seen this defense play really well way too often. I cannot see that this group is going to come out playing with pride. They're going to look at that film like teams don't do that to us. We're a Mike McDonald defense. I think the defense is going to come out on a mission. I think the offense is going to look at this last game like we were really good, but we still didn't get the job done. I expect that Seattle's going to come in playing their best brand of football. Does that mean they're going to win this game, though? Who knows? Because Jacksonville has been as big of a surprise as anybody. And, they've had a lot of really good players there that haven't played to their potential, and now it's coming together. And you're starting to see this football team become a real problem. And now it's really a wide open AFC. So I'm still grappling on what I'm going to be picking as far as this game goes. I think it's going to be close. I do expect this to be a 1-score game. I'm not sure if I have Seattle coming in getting the win or if I think Jacksonville's going to get done. Because to me, it's that much of a toss-up. I think you have 2 playoff caliber teams that have played really good football most of this year. And it's really going to boil down to who makes the fewest mistakes. I know that might seem cliche, but I think there's, when you look at overall talent, I think these are very similar teams that in any stadium, I think would play very close football.
Yeah, I wish you had a beeline to the GM up there and kind of nudge him and tell him that little Witherspoon kid that's from Florida. We'll take him. We'll take him back. We'll take that cornerback and we'll take him.
Seattle wants him back. He just got to get healthy, man.
Yeah. You can ship him on down here. We'll patch him up and heal him up. That dude can flat out get after it, man. But man, it's always fun to do these crossover shows. And when you want the hard hitting analysis of all of our games that will happen this weekend, Tyler Rowland will hit you upside your head about Monday morning about 7 o'clock on Locked On NFL in the AM, and then I'll slide back through in the barbershop at about 2 o'clock. Make sure you check out Locked On NFL twice a day, wherever you get your podcast, whether you watch or listen. And please tap into Corbin Smith at Locked On Seahawks. Great follow, has done this for years, following those Seahawks, and is one of the absolute best on our network and the best in our business. You can catch me on Locked On Jaguars too. All right, man, it's been fun. It's been a little bit under 31 minutes, but we do not take your time for granted on either one of these shows. We appreciate you joining us, and we thank you for tuning in to our crossover edition. Good luck on Sunday to both teams.